If you're new here, I'm Mohammed. This is What the Hall. 99.999% of the time, we just talk about skincare. Sometimes I like to talk about other topics. In the last month, there's been a number of different headlines in the fashion and in the beauty space that I thought were worth discussing. If you're on the main channel, you will get the notification for this video in the community tabs. I'm transitioning away from this channel into another one, and I'll explain briefly what's happening. This channel was one that I started roughly 12 or 13 years ago. All the alphabet platforms, Google and YouTube, are broken. When you search for things, you don't get the same accuracy or usefulness that you would have done back in the day. During the time of growing the channel, nothing ever went viral, but I had motion. I was able to amass about 4,000 people on this channel. I took a very long hiatus for a number of reasons. And so when I decided to come back in the space, obviously there was going to be some dropouts, but a lot of those accounts are still following me and they're not actively engaging with what I'm posting. And as such, I need to drop the dead weight and start fresh. We're going to just keep drip feeding all the evergreen content into this space. I always put a timestamp or like a date as a reference to explain when the video was initially posted, but we're just going to keep moving, keep striving, and I just want to let you guys know that's what we're doing going forward. So with that out of the way, how are you? Love to hear that. It's Labor Day weekend. I hope you had a good one, whatever you got up to, whether that was going to the X or some concert, maybe you went away. The first story, I think, came up on Thursday or Friday. Essence is going into bankruptcy protection. I've been shopping on there for a very long time. And it's not to say I spend a lot there, it's just it's been part of my diet in terms of where I buy high-end things. Essence came onto the landscape. It was a real breath of fresh air because you have to think back to that time around 2010. As Canadian consumers, we had little to no options. Holt Renfrew's e-commerce has become established, I would say, in the last 5 or 6 years. And for those outside of Canada, that's our Selfridge, our Neiman's. And so as Canadians, if you ever wanted to buy designer goods, you were stuck shopping on Net-a-Porter. The cost of shipping was very expensive. You had to pay duties. It really changed the game. Right now, they're in the early stages of seeking bankruptcy protection. My understanding is that that gives them time to negotiate with their creditors to work out an arrangement so that they can maintain ownership and not have to completely shut down the business. Some of the articles and think pieces that I've come across all speak to the same thing which is happening with Louisa Vuitton or LVR. There's like a dynamic pricing thing that's happening and that's compromising how we shop. I may get an offer in my email to get 15% off. If I'm in the third rung of their consumer loyalty program, I'm going to be set different prices to somebody who is brand new and hasn't registered an email. It's almost like eroded the fashion landscape, is what some people are saying. I remember in the early days, the sales, they were finite. They happened twice a year. It had a start date, it had an end date, and that was it. And in the last couple of years, it's been a perpetual thing where there's constantly things that are on offer. And this landscape is not sustainable because it relies on all of us buying on an ongoing basis. And with the way the economy is right now, especially in the US, and the US makes a big part of their consumer base. Before number 47 was elected, people were already signaling the alarms. And I've seen posts of people showing what their carts look like when they go to check out. The duties and the taxes that they have to pay as Americans is crazy. In the past, they might have saved some money by buying from Essence. Now their money isn't going as far. Part of my disappointment as well is, as Canadians, we are literally when it comes to the online space. We lost Nordstrom, whatever. We lost Saks, which goes in tandem with the Bay. And with the Essence loss, I worry, it's not just so much about me being selfish and losing this outlet, because yes, it's going to hurt me in terms of the choices, in terms of what I can buy, but it means jobs that are going to be lost. And it's not just the person who does the get ready with me on TikTok to show my appointments at the Essence Boutique in Montreal. It's also the people who clean the showroom. I'm sure there's hundreds of people who work in the back end, in the shipping and receiving. Vendors are going to be left holding the bag. I came across one TikTok story where she's an indigenous woman who produces different soft goods for around the house. When she got the offer to get stocked on Essence, how life-changing that was going to be. And now the ruin that she's going to be facing if they do go into bankruptcy protection and they don't have to pay her for the inventory that they're holding. I really hope that they're able to turn this around. This is the same story. I've heard about Saks doing this to their vendors. Barney's was infamous for doing this to their vendors and they went under. I don't know if that's what happened with Matches, but there is a parallel between Matches and Essence. It's a real sad set of circumstances that we find ourselves in. I hope that they turn this around and I hope that the business continues. The next story I want to talk about is the Vuitton makeup. Can't remember what the creator's name is. She's amazing. I follow her on TikTok. I think she got a PR package, also a Tia. So the people who are connected have all done their unboxing, shown us the makeup. For the people in the comments, I want to know if some of you are okay. We heard about this launch several months ago. We knew that it was going to be Pat McGrath. They teased the images. Vuitton is a brand that charges $2,000 or $3,000 for canvas bags. What made you think that you were going to get these lipsticks for under $100? I really wonder what some of you are thinking. I don't pipe up in comments. Usually I just kind of take a temperature of what people are saying, but people were truly outraged at the prices. A couple of things to consider. In 2023, Chanel came out with their ultra high-end lipsticks. They're going for, I think, about 205 Canadian. Years later, they're still available for sale. So that means that there still is an appetite for these products. Jump forward, I think last year in 24, Celine had come out with their beauty line. Celine being a part of LVMH, I'm sure that is part of the template that leads to the Vuitton makeup. Post-pandemic, there was a huge surge in spending on luxury goods, but in the last couple of years, the numbers have been down. But one of the places where brands are performing well is in the cosmetic arena. And so you have to think with a giant like LVMH, who not only has these billion-dollar fashion houses, they also have Sephora. In North America, we have the insider scheme. So they have all of our data from the last 10 years. I'm sure they have data on all their other international consumers. They have the infrastructure to produce high quality makeup. They've been doing it at Dior since the 70s. They have this legacy brand and there is that appetite. This is going to be a cash cow for them. And I'm sure it's going to help to bolster their business. So where they're having losses at Louis Vuitton, it doesn't matter what your weight, your height, if you can find a color that suits you and you can fork over the $200 or $300, you can participate in the Vuitton makeup. I think the packaging is cool. I'm sure the formulations are great. If I ever found myself in a position to create products, and that's not my ambition or my dream, I would make sure that my products are as expensive or more expensive than Valmont and La Prairie. 100%. I would gouge you for every penny that you have because I don't want the regular people's money. I want money from the ultra rich. The next story, the cutting room floor. I just recently discovered the cutting room floor last year when she went viral for that interview with the founder of Noah. That sold it to me. I was like, I like her delivery and I like her interviewing styles. I was watching this happen in real time. I think the week prior, she alluded to the fact that she was taking on more people as part of her team. I'm pretty sure it was the Monday. She made the post on TikTok to say that she was looking for an employee who would take on like a hybrid role that had 3 different functions in office in New York City. The big issue was, and this is where people got mad, it was $55,000 and there's no benefits. There was so much pushback that I think a day or two later, I'm swiping again and now she's live and she was having the back and forth and explaining to people her rationale. If I was in my 20s, I was still living in my mom's house, I may apply for this job. And going back with the lipstick, not everything is for you. If you know that you can't sustain yourself on that income, keep scrolling to the next posting that meets your needs. For me, when I heard about this, I wasn't bothered. I mean, my initial thought was this is fashion. The fashion industry is exploitative. She made it very clear in the live that she was looking for somebody who potentially had roommates, somebody who was in their very early 20s at the ground level of their career. As I kept getting content related to this, I found this one woman. She was like, yeah, I live in New York. I'm a little bit older. I'm very educated. I'm doing multiple jobs right now just to survive and I can't survive. I'm on benefits. She was in tears by the end of it. It really shook me. She spoke to another point about this conversation that people maybe are forgetting is that there is somebody who is in such a place that 55,000 actually could change their life. We're all coming to these job postings with different needs and different circumstances. I wish she didn't come to the internet at all with this. If it was me and I was an independent business and I was seeking out somebody to fill a role, TikTok is the last place that I'd come to because I know what the internet is like. I don't want to hear what the people think. I just want to find the person. This is Monday morning. As a consequence of this, there's now a think piece in the cut, which is absolutely infuriating. The fashion industry is exclusionary and it is exploitative. I mean, if they pay people pennies to produce these nylon garments and then sell them on Revolve for $300 and $400, what do you think they're going to be paying the people who do the admin roles, right? It only makes sense. Leave the lady alone. There are people who are in the top echelons of fashion who make it clear that they do not want to hire poor people. They want people who come from the same sort of socioeconomic backgrounds that they have. If you're my age, you grew up watching things like The Hills, Olivia Palermo, the girl who started Glossier, Lauren. They were all interns at the various publications at that time, and they all come from very deep pockets, and they've all parlayed those connections and that network to create these huge platforms for themselves. Glossier is a massive business. Palermo is a huge influencer. I'm sure she gets massive checks for whatever collaborations that she does. Those are the types of people who find themselves in those spaces. This comes full circle because in the last couple of days, we get the news that Anna Wintour left Vogue America, and who's replacing her? Chloe or Katie, she who was the co-host of the Vogue podcast with Choma, the editor at British Vogue, she's now the editor of American Vogue. Now you may ask yourself, who is this woman? She is the daughter of Candice Bergen. Candice Bergen, who played Murphy Brown. That's one level of nepotism, but you also may not know that Candice Bergen's dad was Edgar Bergen, who was a famous ventriloquist who came up at the time when radio and television started. There's a very deep level of nepotism in this situation. It's not ideal, but that's just how it's set up. On the other hand, if I had a legacy, if I had access and I had children, you better believe I'm going to set up my children to have the same level of success or more than what I experienced. I wouldn't want them to have to get it out the mud. I think going forward, what I will be doing is probably 2 episodes per month. In the past, I've been very casual about this, but I need you to do all the things. Make sure you click all the buttons. When you get to the end screen, if you make it this far, please, if you have the time, watch the next video. Thank you for listening. Thank me for speaking, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.